Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In the garage today I got a 2012 Infiniti QX56, also known as the QX80 or the Nissan Armada, and I'm going to be putting in a new alternator. So go ahead and pop your hood. So before we get started, I'm just going to go ahead and grab a 10mm and let's just pull the battery cables here. Just kind of get them up out of the way. So taking a look here, not exactly sure how I'm going to get this alternator out right now, but you can see way down here in the bottom left corner, passenger side, is the alternator pulley, and right above that right here is the belt tensioner. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to crawl underneath, remove the skid plate, and we'll see if we got better access down there to get it out. So first thing I'm going to do is remove this plastic fairing here, and it looks like we got 6 10mm bolts we need to remove. So now we can go ahead and remove the metal skid plate here. You got a total of 4 13mm bolts. You got one right up in here, same thing on this side, and then on the back side up here and then back there. Alright, so next, as you can see, I just blocked the rear wheel because I'm going to go ahead and jack up the front end just to give me a little more room crawling under there. Then grab your jack, and I'm just going to go right underneath the frame there on the front. Then just grab you a couple jack stands, and I'm just going right underneath the frame here. So with that jacked up, that gives you a lot more room to get under here. And as you can see, alternator's right there, and the belt tensioner is right above that. And what I think I'm going to try doing is somehow fishing it through this area right here. I'm going to see if I can get these lines out of the way and possibly unbolt this cooler and see if we can just kind of tilt that out of the way just enough to drop that alternator down in here. If not, I'm going to have to figure out a different plan. So I'm going to do these lines first, and it looks like this is already broke, so that's kind of just sitting there. But you got one up here as well, so let's go ahead and try pulling that just out of there like that. And then same with this one here, just pull on it, and then looks like right up above there it just kind of pulls out. So now those are kind of free and out of the way, so we can move them how we need to. So now looking towards the back of the car, like I said, let's try to get this cooler out of the way. Looks like we got 3 bolts, one here and then 2 right here, which are going to be 12mm. So let's go ahead and pull those 3 bolts. Now let's see if we can just pull this out, and then like I said, maybe just tip it out of the way for now. Not exactly sure yet. Alright, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to record this because it's hard to do with one hand. But as you can see, belt tensioner pulley's right there. And then that bolt on the pulley is going to be a 14mm. So I'm going to use a 3/8 breaker bar. What I'm going to do is pull down on that, and that'll release tension on the tensioner. And then hopefully, using my other hand, I can slip this belt off the alternator. pop it off the alternator like that. Go ahead and relieve the tension. And I'll just go ahead and leave that on there for now. Alright, so now looking at the back side of the alternator, got your rack and pinion right here. Let's go ahead and disconnect this electrical connector right there. Let's get your hand up in here. And then what you want to do is just press on that, and then at the same time pull out. Just press on it. That'll release it. And just unplug that. So next I'll go ahead and take off the positive battery cable from the alternator. So go ahead and pull this black boot off of here. That gives us access to that nut. And you want to grab a 12 millimeter. Just going to try this stubby wrench up in here. And then it looks like we need to either unplug these off of this bracket. You got one right there, one right here. Or I'm just going to try and pull this 10 millimeter bolt just to take this whole bracket off. That way I don't have to worry about breaking these clips on here, since they're just plastic. And now back on the front side of the alternator, looks like we got a 10 millimeter ground wire right there that we need to pull off. So back on top here, that top bolt on the alternator is going to be really hard to get to. So I'm going to see if I can just take this, kind of tilt it out of the way as well, and see if that'll give us a little bit better access to that. Just 10 millimeter bolts here. And not sure if I can just tilt this out of the way or not. So just kind of like that. So with that out of the way, you can see that gives us a little better access here. You can see the belt tensioner there. I'm gonna go ahead and pull off my breaker bar here real quick. Now it's kind of hard to see, but just below that belt there, you can see that bolt right there. We need to pull that out, and that's going to be a 14 millimeter. So it's kind of hard to get the camera up in there so you guys can see it, but just go ahead and grab your 14 millimeter. I'm going to go through the bottom here. Just watch out for these lines here. This bolt's probably on here pretty tight. So may have to use a cheater bar if nothing else too. Let's go ahead and loosen that. Hopefully that broke it loose some. So since we got that one busted loose, let's go ahead and try and break free this other one before we go ahead and pull them both out. And it's going to be a 12 millimeter, and it's going to be that one right there. Hopefully this one's not as hard as that other one. Alright, so with those busted loose, I'll grab a smaller ratchet to stick up in there. Then go ahead and grab your 15 millimeter. We'll get the rest of that top bolt out. Alright, so as you saw, that top bolt was kind of a pain to get out of there. I'll show you my bolt here. You can see how it just kind of welded itself to the alternator. It's so corroded. So just take your time getting that out, and I'll have to go ahead and clean these threads with the wire brush and everything. But it looks like we got one more bolt that we need to take out in order to get this alternator to drop out of there. And you can see it right up in there. That's going to be a 12 millimeter we need to pull out. And then also you can see how that hose is attached to that bracket. So go ahead and pull this out, and let's go ahead and get that 12 millimeter out. Alright, so I lied. It looks like we got one more after that, holding that bracket on. And it's going to be that 12 meter right up there. So let's go ahead and loosen that, and I'm going to get that from the top. You can go ahead and remove your bracket here. Alright, so here's what that bracket looks like. Alright, so now comes the fun part. Seeing if we can get this alternator out of here. So I should just be able to pull this out of here, I think. Let's just bring it down here for right now. Figure out how we're going to get this out of here. Alright, so what you want to do is kind of get it in this position. Make sure this big line is up above there. And kind of right there. Just watch it as you're pulling it down. I think this is going to work. Looks like our big line's getting caught up right up on that. Let's see if we can. Band-Aid's coming off here. Let's see if we can lift this big hose over that. There we go. So just like that. Alright, so now you can just compare your old one to your new one. This is an AC Delco, brand new one, not a remanufactured. And there's the part number, which I'll put a link in the description to. I just got it off of rockauto.com. As you can see, the original one is a Nissan. And you just want to make sure all these match up correctly, your connector and all the bolt holes. So it looks like that'll work. Alright, so let's see if we can get this new one up in there. I'm going to kind of do the same thing as I did pulling the old one out. Kind of up like that, I think. And then saw how I just kind of put this hose over front of it. You want to make sure this is in the front. So we should be ready to start mounting. Then you go ahead and take your top bolt. As you can see, kind of cleaned up the threads with the wire wheel, and then I threw a little anti-seize on there just to help with the corrosion. So go ahead and crawl under there. I like to stick my right hand underneath, back behind the rack and pinion there. And go ahead and lift it up there. Let's try to get our top bolt through. Just have to go by feel, kinda. Once you get that bolt through, go and tighten up a few threads here so it stays in place. Just kind of like that, so it's still loose, but it's on there. Next, go ahead and grab your bracket, and we'll go ahead and put that on from up above. And then grab your other bolt. Go ahead and get that one started. Then go ahead and grab your last bolt. And what you want to do is pull out on this bracket a little bit. Stick that alternator up in there. Now we go ahead and tighten all those. Once you get all three of those tight, let's go ahead and move on to that upper alternator bolt. We'll go ahead and tighten that 14 millimeter. Now with that top bolt tight, go ahead and move on to your ground wire here. Grab your bolt, and let's go ahead and screw that in. And then go ahead and grab your 10 millimeter and tighten that bolt up. So now looking at the back side of the alternator here, go ahead and pull this nut off. Go ahead and stick your battery cable back on here, along with your new nut. And then that new nut is going to be actually a 13 millimeter. Let's go ahead and tighten that. And then put your boot back over. And then go ahead and grab your 10 millimeter screw here for this bracket. Let's put that onto that little mount right there. And then go ahead and grab your plug. And let's plug that in. And you just want to hear it click, and then you know it's on there. Now let's go ahead and mount our cooler back up there. Let's grab your 10 millimeter nuts, and let's just twist this back up in here. And actually those are 12 millimeter, not 10 millimeter. Next, you can go ahead and put this line up into that plastic bracket, but as you can see, mine broke off because that plastic was so brittle. So you want to just snap that in there. Now we can go ahead and get our lines back in on the shroud here. So this upper one, just want to make sure it gets behind this here and then up above there. And then go ahead and snap that in. And then this one, it's going to snap in right up there. And then, like I said, this was already broke, but it sits in there just like that. So next I'll go ahead and go down below. I get my 14mm and my breaker bar, and we'll put that on the belt tensioner pulley, and we'll try and slip that belt on the alternator. And then just make sure you're centered on your AC compressor and your alternator, and then go ahead and relieve the tension. Just like that. Then go ahead and grab your skid plate along with your bolts. Then go ahead and put your plastic fairing on here. Next we can go ahead and jack it up and lower it. And I should have did this before I put on the skid plate so I could jack it up on the front, but we can still jack it up here on the side, just right underneath the frame rail there. Next, go ahead and grab your coolant reservoir here, tip this back over, and then you got this like little rubber plug here that goes down into this little bracket here. Grab your positive cable here, tighten that up, and then connect your negative. Alright, so let's just go ahead and start it, make sure everything's good. And then you want to look down at the bottom left corner there. You can see that we're charging. And this should drop down after, I don't know, I think it's like 30 seconds or so. You can see it kind of dropping there. Once our RPMs start dropping. And right there. So we should be at normal charging voltage now. Alright, so that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully this helps you out, saves you some money doing it yourself. I tried to get the best recordings as I could. It's just hard to get the camera in some of them areas. And again, this was a 2012 Infiniti QX56. And I think they changed it to the QX80 in 2014, but it's the exact same thing. And then the Nissan Armada is exactly the same as this as well. And this procedure may also work on the Nissan Titan. I'm not too sure on that, but it does use the same exact engine as this. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.